Welcome to Vets to PM's Military Transition Academy podcast, the show where we discuss how to succeed in transitioning from the military service to the civilian workforce. This show and the academy it represents helps veterans transition into meaningful, lucrative post-service careers. Our special guest today is Matt Hansen. He's a motorcycle rider, movie lover, video director and producer, and even a stand-up comic. He's an Air Force vet, and he considers himself a bit of an oddity in the veteran community, but he's on the path to change that. Turning to a life of creative development, he's on a new mission to bring veterans' stories and marketing triangles into digital media. I can't wait for you guys to hear it. Pretty exciting. It's got a lot of great little video clips and good advice to boot. Let's get started.
Yeah, so I don't have any type of traditional path to get there, except for the fact that I was in ROTC before I was in high school. So the creative path for me was discovered. It was a little bit in high school because I was in the theater group, and I thought I was going to college on like a basketball scholarship. That was my whole thing. Like if you grew up in the late '80s, early '90s, the Dream Team, Jordan, like all those guys, and I was in North Carolina, so UNC and Duke was a whole thing. So. But yeah, some guy I was talking to one day, he's like, "You're pretty funny. You should come join this group." And it was a theater group. And he was in my ROTC class at the time. So got out of high school, bumped around for like about 2 years. Things weren't really working. And so then my dad, who was in the Navy, convinced me to join the Air Force. So I go in there, and then it's a 5-year stint, and I get out, and then I find my way to Hollywood, where a friend of mine was already working, and I basically just crashed on his couch. And so I had been working in a motorcycle parts and accessories store in Atlanta, Georgia. And the only reason that had happened was because I discovered motorcycles in the Air Force in North Dakota, where I was stationed at. So I go to Hollywood. I'm doing everything I can just to kind of figure out what's going on. I did stand-up comedy for like 2 or 3 years. Yes, there are DVDs. I may allow you to see them depending on how I feel. But I think this was like 2000. This time is like 2008, 2009, and GI Bill had opened up a little bit more for different kind of colleges and advanced money and everything like that. So I found my way to LA Film School in Hollywood on Sunset Boulevard, and that basically changed the entire game for me. So I started putting everything that I had in my back pocket with kind of the love of motorcycles and comedy and everything, and just kind of started creating some stuff. And in the meantime, I was working on film and television as like a production assistant, all kinds of stuff like that. But that's really like 2009, 10 is when I really kind of started my creative path to kind of where I am now. So that's the nutshell version.
Wow. Yeah. And I've seen some of the videos. I think it's super cool. Honestly,
thank you, man. Yeah.
The Alpine Stars. I think that takes me back to when I was in crotch rockets in Japan, scraping mountains. I think that was some of the best riding I ever did was up there. And then I hung it up for a Harley to go ride with my dad since he came over to Japan.
Yeah.
I can't pass up taking a V-twin up the mountain with my father. Yeah, I would say behind me, but he was faster than me, so he was always in front. So,
it's crazy how much of a scene that is over in Japan, actually, too. Like, why their love of Harleys and old Harleys specifically is like it's a whole. For a country that makes the most advanced technology motorcycles, they're loving these old things from the 50s. And I'm just like, wow, this is really interesting.
It's an amazing culture. I just after watching.
There's something to be said for being able to turn a wrench on something.
Yeah.
Hey, look, man, I fixed that or replaced that, right? Like, sorry, JD.
It's a whole thing, like and I was never like a biker, I guess is the terminology, but like I got to work with a lot of companies in Southern California because everybody's there. So I started doing motorcycle reviews, and I got to work with, all the major brands. I got to take out everything. I think to this day, I think I've ridden over 350 different motorcycles. So I have some pretty decent knowledge of like, oh, do you ride a Harley? I'm like, I ride everything. So like everything down the pipe I've ridden in like the last 20 years. So,
Right. Yeah. Any of them emerge as your favorite, or is it just the favorite for a type of
it's kind of depending on the day. So my daily beater around LA was a Kawasaki 300, which for gas mileage and like, just purposes of getting around LA was fantastic. But there were some high points, Ducati, Aprilias, and I really like Triumph actually, because when I was in the military, I started off on a Kawasaki and decided to try to learn to do wheelies from a standstill in a parking lot on base. That did not go well. So I was up there in the snow, like just sad for like a winter, like, And then somebody happened to be selling a Triumph downtown, and I spotted it, and it was love at first sight, and that was it for me after that. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure the on-base motorcycle course safety guy, other duty is assigned, was really happy with that, man.
They loved it. They said, way to go, Airman First Class.
Here's what you don't do, lads and lasses.
You're high speed, aren't you? I said, yeah.
Oh, that's too cool. That's too cool. So you did the filming thing and the comic thing. I mean, I think that's pretty interesting because you can almost tell the creative stuff popping out in some of your videos. I really kind of dug the way that you did them, and they're pretty high energy as well. So you almost can't look away from them. So whoever you did it for and all the different companies just that are on your website, I'm sure they're extremely pleased. Especially the Nike one. As I was watching it, I was like, man, that's the guy who understands advertising.
Yeah, and so the thing with that is that actually came out of that was never actually a thing. I was working on a project in Atlanta with a young director, and we were putting together a BMW spec for BMW. He wanted to do like something on the 7 Series, and we prepped for like a month and a half, and he actually pulled out at the last minute because it got a little bit too big for him. But we were going to be working with Puma on a very small level, and I don't mean to say like we had a contract with Puma or anything like that, but if you know marketing, Puma has tie-ins with 4 major brands in the auto industry, and so it's Porsche, Ferrari, BMW, and Mercedes, I believe. And so, but they never ever worked together in commercialization space. So you can see logos on clothing and sneakers and everything like that from the companies, but they're never together in commercials because they have to play separately. So we were going to get about 4 or 5 pairs of shoes from the company to put into the BMW spec to kind of make it a whole, cool marketing thing. And after that kind of went away, I had been working on it so much I couldn't get the idea of a sneaker out of my head. And so I sat down one day and I had brought in like $7,000 to the project of my own money, and I said, okay, like I've got to do something. Like, what's going to happen here? And literally in like a day and a half, I sat down and wrote a script, which became that Nike spot. And then if you go to the web on my website, it's under the narrative drop-down menu. It's about 1 minute and 15 seconds or 20 seconds, I believe. And that's the actual story that I came up with for that spot. So the 30-second spot was just kind of for commercialization, but there was a deeper level to that story. So, yeah.
Yeah. Wow. This is too cool. How do creative guys like yourself find their way, post-transition?
So this is interesting. And because I didn't know that this was a thing until after I got out. What I encourage people to do now is if you think it might be a thing with you, while you're in, start doing as much research as you can. And, just because I happen to reach out to you guys and find you guys through LinkedIn, that's an amazing, amazing connection point. Just be polite and talk to people and say, hey, what's going on? Can I get a moment of your time or whatever like that? And it just, the doors, and nowadays with technology and the social media, it's insane who you can reach out to. I mean, I got a hold of somebody who was driving for Lamborghini like 3 months ago. I was like, what world do we live in? It's like you can just like, hey, what's going on? I have nothing. What's going on with you? But yeah, as much prep as you can if you think you might be into something like that. And while you're still in service, kind of start looking into it, because as soon as you hit the ground running when you get out, everybody and their brother's already into whatever you're into.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of like game planning a little bit before. And I didn't have the benefit of knowing this about myself. I just thought I was kind of like a fun, goofy guy. And it turns out that there was a whole creative nugget in there that just, had to be unlocked.
So MTA Podcast Nation, I just want to highlight a couple things Matt said there, because he was talking very extemporaneously, and I think he hit some really key points. So first of all, don't wait until you're out. Start before you get out, right? Yeah. 18 months early is not early. You're going to have VA, you're going to have stuff. The commander's not going to let you go. You're going to have operational mission. I mean, it's not as smooth as everybody makes it sound. The second thing is, how do you find out if you like something? Well, you got to ask peeps. So how do you ask peeps? LinkedIn, in person, but you got to have the courage. You're not in the military anymore. You don't have to suck it up in silence and figure it out and break stuff. Ask people who are doing what you think you might be interested in. They will help you, especially if you reach out through social media. Everybody wants to give their opinion, and they'll give it to you if you ask them. That's why it's social media, right?
Yeah.
Which means you have to build LinkedIn profile. Check out Vets to PM's free resources. We've got a whole class where we walk you through how to build a profile and how to use it to network online digitally. And then the final thing that Matt illustrated is you got to beta test. This isn't like the military where you got to stay with the first outfit or the first military branch you served in. And some of you out there listening are dual triple branch folks. I mean, you don't have to stay with the first thing you try. Your next gig out of uniform is not going to be your last gig, right? You don't have to be something as uber creative as Matt, but dude, if you get to the next thing and 18 months in, you're like, yeah, well, this isn't quite what I thought it was in my beta test phase. You're allowed to take that jersey off, go sign to play for another team, put their jersey on, and try to go win pennants, man. You don't have to be as loyal and dedicated. Now, while you're in their seat, I would encourage you to be as loyal and dedicated as you can. But you can always go play for another team. So anyway, JB, what did you hear, my friend?
Oh, I mean, I think a lot of that same stuff. I mean, ultimately, you take somebody who had an immense amount of creative talent, and you can tell just by all the things that he's done during transition. But you did mention something like all the programs now, right? So at some point, while you were in, you didn't feel like you had the access to the same stuff that's available now. And I test to that. There's so many new resources. You got to do some homework, and I think that's an extremely important part to preparation.
And the thing about now too is that's really key is, and this wasn't even the way back in 2009, 2010 when I started getting into creative stuff like that, is that everything's basically free on YouTube. And this is the thing that people kind of overlook and don't really think about. And I just encourage everybody to do it because nowadays, I hate to say this to any emerging film schools out there that are doing good jobs, but like you can go on YouTube and in basically 6 months, you can become as good as anybody coming out of film school, especially with the advent of social media and we're editing everything on our phones now and everything like that. Is that if I was doing it now with the knowledge that I have now, I would spend 6 months and I would sit down on YouTube and research everything. I'm speaking only about, creativity in film and video and stuff like that. Just 6 months of research while you do something else and just kind of look at it and go, oh, okay. Because all the tools, all the tricks, everything that everybody's using. I don't know if you guys saw the movie that came out last year, The Creator. It was a film. Yeah, it was a fantastic looking film. And they shot it. The director, who was a visual graphics artist before he became like a series director, they shot it on a camera called a Sony A7S III. I'm getting that right, I believe. And this is I think it's like a $4,000 to $5,000 camera that anybody could buy, and you slap the lens on that, and it just looks, the quality is fantastic and amazing. So I think the budget for the film was something like 80 million dollars, something like that, and it looks like it cost 250 million. And that's a little bit of him being the person that he was, knowing how to use the equipment, but also too, it just goes to show you like that's something that anybody could buy. And if you had the knowledge to do it, you could make something of incredible looking value that did not cost a lot of money. And back when I started, I've been flying drone videos now for a couple of years. And I remember when I got out of film school and I was working with military guys who had started their own video drone company in Los Angeles. And I think for the day, the charge was like $5,000 to get out there because we were attaching Canon 5Ds or 7Ds onto a 8-copter drone that was like the size of my body. And like, oh yeah. And I had them really for like 2.5 hours. That was the timeline. And we got some incredible shots, but at the same time, it's like nowadays, $600 buys you an incredible drone that's shooting 4K, HD, all this crazy stuff. And so if you want to get into that, there's really no excuse. That's just, it's all out there for you. So yeah.
And what's amazing about that is think about what he just said, Podcast Nation. You have the chops. You may not even be able to connect the dots from your perspective now, but hey, I'm a creative, but all I did was fly drones. That's what we say when corporate America says, well, what'd you do? Matt says, I flew drones. Or you say, I drove a truck. Or you say, I drove a tank. Like, well, tell us about all the management experience. Tell us about all the skills and abilities you developed. Because, you buy one drone, you do one job, the economics are simple. You're up, right? Yeah. You're in the black. I mean, so you literally could start your own business. So there's two things that Matt has given you a beat on. Hey, you could be a creative and create films, or hey, you could be a drone guy that works with guys like Matt and helps them create films. And oh, by the way, neither one of them produces a very bad living. I mean,
yeah,
right?
Well, and that's the thing too, is it's gotten a little bit more with the advent of technology now, everybody has access to this stuff. So I had a particular bend just because like motorcycles became my passion. And so with that, I kind of used that with what I was working on. So I think if you go onto the website, the top page there has the video. It says DJI versus Aprilia. And so the hilarious story behind that is that drone specifically was a DJI FPV that had just come out on the market. I think this is, if I'm saying this right, 2, 3 years ago, I believe. Um, so nobody really knew how to use it yet. Like if you went onto the website for DJI, and even in the videos, there wasn't really any long form, like 7 minute, like, and this is how you do this. It was basically like, here's your goggles, spend 4 days on it before you actually go to fly it. So I happen to know a guy down in Santa Monica who owned a Ducati Aprilia shop, and he was doing a track day. It was a VIP track day event. And I said, hey, I'd really love to come film this for you. I'm looking to kind of grow my portfolio a little bit. He's like, yeah, sure, absolutely. And I said, I will get the fastest drone possible, which to my knowledge at that time was that FPV drone. So we got it, and I took my buddy out at the time who was my drone operator. I wasn't flying it because I had to run the motorcycles. But we got in the Southern California mountains. So we go and we're testing it in like 2 or 3 hours and just kind of figuring out what looks good. And he's like, this is amazing. And it's flying 90 miles an hour down in a straight line, like catching us on the straightaways. And we knew we had to have this because we were going to the track. I don't know if you guys know anything about track days, motorcycles, but like you can hit 140, 150 easy on a straightaway if you got a fast enough bike. So my idea was like, we might be able to get them, but probably we'll catch them in the corners at a high speed. And that's kind of shown on the videos what we did. But the last run of the day in the Southern California mountains, my drone guy has an idea. And he says, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to dive bomb you as you come through, and then I'm going to swoop up and I'll get this beautiful shot of the mountain. I was like, go for it. Do it. So we line up the shot,
Maverick.
comes down there, shoots it. Exactly. So I see the drone come in front of me and I see it pass to my right. And I'm like, oh, great. That's going to be a beautiful shot. And so I stop the bike and I happen to turn around in my helmet and he's doing this. I was like, I don't like that. So I roll back up to him. He goes, what? He goes, it went that way and I don't know where it is. Now, keep in mind, this is Friday. The shoot is on Monday. The drone has just come out on the market. So we're going to look for that. We spend 6 hours in the Southern California mountains looking for a drone. And what had happened was the battery had come out of it. So it had landed somewhere, crashed, and the battery came out. Now, the problem with this is it wasn't sending a signal to his controller anymore. So as of Friday night, Saturday morning, I had no drone. I had my drone, and it was small, and it could have got some cool stuff, but it wasn't this drone. So I was like, oh my gosh. So literally Saturday night, I'm looking at the Best Buys in the local area to see if anybody has them. And one store, like 30 miles away, had one. So we had to go out of our way to do that. And then we headed down to that racetrack is Chuckwalla, which is kind of like in Palm Springs area. So keep in mind, he's only been playing with this thing for 2 days. And we have to do a track day shot Monday. So
and he's crashed it and lost it once.
It's crashed it once, but I had confidence. I had confidence in this guy. I was like, I know he didn't mean to do that. It was an accident. So we go out and we were at the track at like 5:36 a.m. And I was like, I had an envision in my mind. And this is where kind of the creativity comes in, because you see a lot of people doing the same stuff and they might be popular on YouTube or Instagram, but it all kind of looks the same. And I looked at the Chuckwalla and I was like, I've never seen a track shot from like the air. I've never seen like a really high shot of it. You can see the track layout on the website, but nobody's ever gotten a live, at least I hadn't seen it at the time. So I said, first light, you test this thing and you pop up in the air and go do it. And so he did it. And it's like, okay, cool. And so about 7:30, when it was really light, he goes out, and that shot's actually in that video. And it's all the way up in there, and you see the full track layout of Chuckwalla in the desert. And it is, for even the 0.5 seconds that shot is, it's gorgeous. But yeah, we came out, had a great day. We shot for like 12 hours. It was 95 degrees. We almost died in the heat, but that video came out amazing. So everybody survived. Yeah.
And you didn't have to look for the drone again. So,
Well, we had to get a new one. So
Did you ever find the drone?
No. Yeah, I can probably lead a search party now, and maybe if we canvas it for, I know where the actual location is because it was in my backyard. Angeles Crest Highway in California is in like the backside of Burbank. So it's still somewhere up there in the mountains.
That footage is living on that drone somewhere.
That would be a fun military adventure to get a couple guys together and go like, all right, we're gonna general area, because I know nobody like travels up that way. It's not like a hike trail, so that would be the fun thing we get together and do. Like, let's go find the drone.
So there's a third business opportunity Matt's illuminated for us. Yeah. You can start a drone company that hunts drones that go down when they're shooting production stuff.
Yes, there you go. Using high-tech military stuff, exactly. Yeah.
Grids, azimuths, yeah, all of it.
That's amazing, amazing stuff. And you talk with such passion. And how does that compare with productivity? You know, for the veteran when they're out there, you know, ultimately trying to find the jobs that they want versus the jobs they're, you know, essentially have to do.
Yeah. So this was the kind of moment in my life where I call it the rare moment of epiphany, is that I was in security forces. And fun backstory on this. So I'm in ROTC. Before I go to basic training, the last thing my recruiter says to me before I leave, he's like, don't worry, you're in security forces, it's your first duty station. The worst place they would send you is someplace like, I don't know, Minot, North Dakota, but they won't do that. I was like, you chose all your East Coast bases on your dream sheet. I'm like, yeah. I'm 20 years old. I don't know. So we're in Lackland, and I know I'm doing security forces in Lackland. So we got there, I think, in like March, April. So it was already kind of hot. And then I had to do security forces training in Texas in the summer. And so they call out the sheets and like, Hansen, Minot, North Dakota. I was like, so, and I actually my job required me to have like a secret clearance. So I was up there for, I think, almost 5 to 6 months, not actually doing my job, waiting for my clearance to clear. So by the time that had, my term had kind of come, and they offered me the new, to do the re-up, but also there was like a bonus attachment. And I had my rare moment of clarity was, I'm going to take this money, I'm going to buy a motorcycle or a car, then it will be gone. And the deal that they offered me too is I had to stay 1 more year in Minot, and then I could have gone to my duty station. I was like, I can't. But then I also too, kind of this in the back of my mind, I knew that this wasn't going to be a long-term thing for me. And so I had a lot of conversations with people. They say, stay another 4 years, and I was like, I don't see this as my calling really, or something that I want to spend a lot of time in. And I don't mean to kind of bash the military or anything like that, but that time in my life was instrumental for me to kind of grow up a little bit and get mature and, kind of develop a sense of who I was. And that was fantastic. And it was great that I got to use GI Bill. But this is the kind of thing I want to get out there too, is if you were, I don't want to say like coerced or forced into the situation, like you just had to go in the military, you do have some time when you're in there to kind of figure some stuff out about like, do I want to do this for another 8 years? Is this going to be 20 years? A friend of mine and I went in at the same time. He happened to go Coast Guard. He put in 22 years, and now he's 42 years old, and he's got his whole life ahead of him. But it's that important thing is like, if I could say anything about this whole podcast and give anybody kind of an idea of kind of like high-mindedness, it's you're not where you are. And I think you said it earlier too, is like, it's not a permanent thing. It's something that you do kind of sit down and want to look at all the pros and cons, like, okay, if I do this now, what'll happen? But this is not the end of your life, and this is not the next 10 to 20 years if you don't want it to be. So take that time to really kind of think about it. And for me, I kind of just had that moment of, I think there's something in me that's not this, and this, while it may be good, financially for me to kind of sit here and collect the paycheck every 2 weeks, or, it's not going to help me creatively kind of where I needed to get to. And even though I didn't really know what that was, I knew that wasn't the space for me at the time. And so, yeah.
Okay. So Matt, you're talking about that ability, that skill. And if you don't have it, folks, he just said, develop it. And the only way you develop it is by, it's like doing a new exercise. The only way you develop any proficiency at it is to just lift the plates. If you don't know how to think critically, if you don't know how to reflect, if you don't know how to do the old Benjamin Franklin exercise, here's the issue at the top. Half the paper is pluses, the pros, half the paper is minuses, the cons. Sit down and honestly assess, what do you like, what do you don't like, and then what you like, that's what you're doing next. Knowing agilely, project management, you can figure out a different course of action if that one isn't it either, right? But you have to reflect, and you have to be introspective, and you have to be honest with yourself. That's going to take some actual development, right? But as Matt alluded to, you get to each fork in the road brings you to a new adventure and a new fork on the other side of the adventure. So Matt, where are you at now, dude? What are you doing? Like, what do you see in the next couple years, reflecting on where you've come from and where you think you're going now?
Yeah. So this is fun for me because this is pitch time. So the website is called anointedforsuccess.com. And you can find me on Instagram at AFSUCCES. So almost AF success, but not spelled probably AF success. So I am launching a digital media company. And right now we are looking for investors. And I'd love to play in kind of the military entrepreneur pool for this, because working in the commercial world and you get to work with kind of different producers and videographers and everything like that. And I have 4 shows that we want to get off the ground to basically launch this media company. And they range from everything from travel adventure to luxury goods to sports and fitness. And as you would guess, kind of motorcycle travel adventure, something like that. So I started developing stuff really hardcore about 3 years ago. And so we were in Austin, Texas for about 8 months. We were about to launch on one show that I had. And unfortunately, the investor was a little shisty and pulled the funding at the last minute, which left me kind of like, not good. So, but we're going to launch the digital media company, and we want to get those 4 shows off the ground. And the reason why I say that is because working with the commercial guys that I have, we figured out how to do this for $50,000 per project per pilot. So for $200,000, we'll have 4 shows ready to go to launch to sale. And it takes about a month and a half I've already developed the shows. That's not the issue. It's basically the filming, getting the people that you want on them, editing, doing all the post work and everything like that. So that's the investment that we're looking for right now, and we want to launch it. But my heart for this day was to kind of reach out to military veterans who might be like me, because for me, there was no path. And there might be a lot of guys like out there who are into, motorcycles or kayaking or hiking or whatever. It's like, this is really my passion. How do I make this kind of more? And these are kind of the stories I want to tell. And specifically for military veterans is we have these origin stories, and mine might be a little bit more unique than other people's, but whatever that passion was, and for me at the time, it was motorcycles. And so that turned into something else that then became sort of like a business model. And that's what the stories I want to tell in the veteran community. And I want to get veteran businesses to kind of sponsor this and get behind it, because this is what makes great leaders and great entrepreneurs and great business people is you have this passion, you don't know how to get it done, but you know it's there and you get it out there. And you just happen to have this military background that gives you the kind of, for lack of a better word, gumption to go figure it out and go do it. So yeah, that's what we're trying to get off the ground right now.
And think about this, gang. So to kind of wrap up where we are now, our origin story on this podcast with Matt is he said, hey, network. Hey, figure out what you want to do. Hey, use LinkedIn. So that's literally coming full circle now, because then he said, hey, so here's the creative I was, but didn't know it. I've turned into, now I know it. And now I'm ready to get off the chain and go, turn this thing loose and break it. If you're an investor, if you're a podcaster, if you're a drone gal, if you're a, whatever you are, Matt just said, hey, you're in the veteran mafia. You've already got the golden Willy Wonka ticket, man. You jumped in because you raised your right hand. You don't know who to network with? I bet Matt would be open to a phone call or an email or a chat. That's how he and I got connected. We started a chat on LinkedIn. He reached out. There's that courage. There's that candor. Told me who he was, where he was. And I'm like, oh my God, Jeremy would love this guy on the podcast. And here we are. And Matt only in 6 weeks. So
I think less than that, actually. I think it was like a month. Yeah, but yeah. So
yeah. So gang, I mean, you don't know what you want to do. You don't know what you want to be. Creative guys like Matt, it obviously can help you figure it out. JB and I can help you figure it out. That's what we do for a living. Just reach out. Add us in your network on LinkedIn. Start asking questions. And yes, they're dumb questions, but we had dumb questions too. You only get smart by asking dumb questions, and then you get the knowledge, and then you're a smart question asker guy or gal. I mean, it's simple. It's how we learn. Ask questions, put the knowledge in your noggin, and then execute.
And there's so much here too. I want to unpack a lot in this, and I don't want to get too, over the top complicated with this, but there are so many stories in the veteran community, and it doesn't necessarily have to be your creativity as a person. It might be the business that you're trying to launch. I got connected with a lot of great groups down here in Florida where I'm at now. And there's just these amazing stories of these people that were in the military that they want to start businesses, and they've got this idea. And a lot of them are just really, they want to help the local community. And I see it. I'm a big picture guy. So I'm like, in the back of my mind, I'm like, that's great, but that's not big enough. Like, let's go a lot bigger. So I was talking to this one lady, and she wants to start kind of a local dentistry service going around the neighborhood and giving. And my brain immediately went to like, well, we're in Tampa. Why don't we go to the Bucks game and then park the trailer outside and then kind of everybody like that's just kind of the way I work as kind of like, but those stories exist all over the map for military veterans who either are entrepreneurs or started their own business. And my particular bend on is like, let me tell that story in a big, amazing, visually creative way. And you will have more business than you can possibly fathom just because of the way that we're going to shoot and film it. But it's personal and it's real and it's true to you because that's your origin and that's who you are and that's what you want to do.
That's amazing, dude. We could connect you with prior podcast guests. When you get them on a show and you guys are getting ready to release the show, Matt, have them come on the podcast with us and we'll do, the digital marketing and the channeling. I mean, yeah, man. See, gang, this is a prime example. You don't know where a relationship can go until you start the relationship, right? And you don't have to get married on date one. That's not how it works. You can develop a relationship, right? So, man, what a vision! And the minute you said that, Matt, I saw this drone doing a 92 mile an hour fly over the little diddle truck, hooking up the Bucks fans. Man, what a cool image!
What's funny that too is we had that on the I believe it's on that DJI video too. Is that the shot of that? It's almost like a metaphor for life when business and creativity takes off. Is that we have these two bikes on the tarmac. And so the shot is a drag race shot, but it's from above and behind. And the drone can only fly 90. So the bikes take off and like once they hit 120, we just lose them in the shot. But that's kind of the way I see this whole thing with creativity and veteran entrepreneurs is that you have an idea, but it's back here. But the idea is technically the motorcycles in this metaphor. Is it's like, it's going to go. And you're not going to be able to, you're only going to be able to save it so long. But to do that, you've got to connect with other people kind of in the space to really kind of make it one and to make it a seamless shot, so to speak. Yeah.
JP, he just gave me goosebumps, bro. I don't know how I summarize any of that. That was fantastic.
Oh, it is. And it's great. It's effective metaphor for a lot of things too. I mean, I've seen the reels, so it's a great word picture for me at least, but I think everybody should go to theanointedforsuccess.com and go check out the reels. I think they're super quality. I think they're exciting to watch. Kind of like I said in the very beginning of it, I didn't know the backstory, which makes it even better. I'm going to go watch it one more time. But
that's that's tip of the iceberg too, is that started. And this is kind of key for everybody listening to this is like, those are, I think 30 seconds to a minute clips of my portfolio. The build is long form narrative now, because if anybody knows what's going on in the AI space, and a lot of us in the commercial industry are very concerned about this, is that within the next year and a half, if this thing goes where we think it's going to go, that's not going to be a job anymore for a lot of people. And so there might be this thing where, people are coming into, they're offering like $50 or $100 service a month for commercials to be made strictly with AI. And I'm not trying to scare anybody here. I'm just not, but the reality of the situation is where we're going with technology. For my personal space, commercials might not even be a thing for me in the next year and a half. So that's why I'm kind of transitioning into long form narrative. And I want to tell these stories that AI cannot make. It will, but it takes some time. Like you can't make a 45-minute to an hour long story like that. Like they'll get there, but it's not going to be there for a while. And so my thing is about realism. So for instance, one of the shows that we developed is called Time to Adventure. And it's basically where we take a wristwatch from around the world and we track the story of the wristwatch, where it came from. And one example is if your grandfather happened to give you a watch from, a pocket watch from World War II or anything like that. Go back, tell that story, especially if it's a veteran story, that makes it even better. But then we kind of put together a travel adventure marketing idea behind that watch. So how cool would it be to say, like, your grandfather was in Germany or something like that. We go over there and put together an adventure over in Germany based on the wristwatch and its history and everything like that. Just one of the ideas, but that is long form narrative. You can't tell that in 5 minutes. That's a 35 to 45 minute, portfolio. And that's the space that we're getting into right now. So.
Wow.
And I might be able to do it. I might have some, I might have a vision, maybe,
It's cool. They get to, and your customers get to experience it too from the visceral perspective. It's like, wow, I get to see where that watch came from, went to, the story behind it. And maybe I replicate it with the vacation or something.
Yeah. When I think about it from a marketing perspective too, and this is, I think, one thing we don't think about as military veterans is not only your marketability as a person, but also the things that you are passionate about have marketability behind them. And a lot of these companies, I'm sorry to say, aren't really doing it as well as they used to. And so this is kind of my passion, is to come in and I see that you have the product. I really like the product, but I want to put a really interesting story behind it that you're not even doing as a company. And once they see that you can do that, man, the sky is the limit, but you got to have the vision for it. So
yeah, no, you're right. All right, as we start to wrap this up, any tactical tips that you want to give to the transitioning veteran, creative or not creative, that you found that worked really good for you, that would help them, in the next week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks? That way it's tactical and not like I'm 3 years out and I have to strategically. We kind of talked about that, but what would you do in a tactical sense?
I can speak for myself personally, and this might apply to a lot of people, is especially if you're anywhere in kind of the creative headspaces, you do need time to sit down and not do anything. And I know this is a little bit complicated if you have a family and whatnot, but I had to make a list, like literally just like pros, cons. What do I want to do? How am I going to get there? How long is this going to take? And to be very frank and honest with you guys, I didn't start my career, quote unquote, until I was 30, and I'm 43 now. And now I'm just getting to the point now where I'm getting to kind of do the stuff that I always kind of thought I was going to do. But to get to that headspace, tell yourself, remind yourself, it is okay to sit down and not do anything, but focus on like where you think this might go. So grab yourself a piece of paper, wonderful coffee, and just have take a couple of days, take a week if you need to. But realize that once you get out and that's not your job anymore, whatever you're going to be passionate about, whatever company you want to go for, is going to take some serious thought, because you could be devoting another, in my case, 10 years before it actually does happen. Now, hopefully not, because like we're giving some good tips here with connecting with people on LinkedIn and social media and everything like that. But this is kind of something that you want to make sure that you want to do. So give yourself the proper time to sit down, think about it, rationalize, kind of like, okay, is this going to affect me, my family? How is this going to go about this? But I can't say this strongly enough, you deserve that time to sit down and think about it and contemplate it, because it will have a dramatic impact on your life, and hopefully for the better. But yeah, give yourself the time and you deserve it.
Great advice. Doc?
Well, I mean, as he was saying that, I mean, it's like when I'm trying to hit a golf shot. If the last swing thought through my head isn't tempo and then target, and I see the picture of my target in my head, my body can't hit a golf ball there, right? You can't hit it to where you didn't see. Guys do visualization with free throws. Gals do visualization with, shooting hockey pucks. I mean, and the research is out there. If you visualize mentally what you're about to do physically, right? Your muscles, downhill skiers was what the population was. The muscles involved in downhill skiing literally activate. The brain literally fires them. So to Matt's point, don't muddle through this for another decade. It's going to be a lot harder than it had to be. But you have to visualize it, what it is you think you're going to do, and by when you think you'll become that or do that or whatever, and your brain will make that happen. The universe will provide what you're trying to do. So, man, what a cool vision, what a cool analogy with the bikes and the idea for all our entrepreneurs in the crowd listening. I mean, Matt nailed that one. That's great, dude.
If I could be honest with you, there's nothing wrong. I don't want to undersell hard work at all, because everything you're going to do is a lot of hard work into it. But we kind of get into this mentality, and a lot of people told me, and like, you gotta do it. You gotta get out there 24/7. Grind. I'm here to tell you from a personal perspective, that does not work, because you will be exhausted. You'll be tired. You're not going to spend time with the right people, your family, whoever that is for you. But some of the most creative ideas I've ever had in my entire life were when I got on a motorcycle. Sorry to keep talking about bikes, and I would go and I would leave at like 7 o'clock in the morning, and I would go for a drive up in the mountains. and I got no headphones in, nothing. It's just me and the open road and the open sky and just oxygen flowing, just taking a drive, not trying to kill myself, not trying to go fast, just like, and then by the time I got home, I had so many new things, but it wasn't me sitting down like, what do I do? How do I figure this out? Like, it's got to be a thing. It just give yourself the time to breathe, because that's when stuff comes. You guys ever see I think it was like Men in Black, the last movie, when they're sitting down, he's talking about the pie. They're trying to figure out this big problem. He's like, you hungry? You want some pie? He's like, pie? We don't got time for pie. What are you talking about? He's like, yeah, let's go ahead and get some pie. So they sit down, they're eating like apple pie or lemon pie, anything like that. And then all of a sudden, the solution to the problem comes about. He goes, see, I told you, pie. So yeah.
That's the answer.
So Jeremy, what do you think, brother? Take us out of here, dude.
No, I think it's great, honestly, and I think the way you rephrased it, because sometimes taking time for yourself, people see that as I'm sitting at the dinner table, I pour myself a cup of coffee, I've got a blank piece of paper, I've got a pencil in my hand, and that doesn't work necessarily for me. But the motorcycle ride, now that resounded. Like, go do something you love or something that's not stressful. It doesn't require a lot of brain power, and give yourself the space, give yourself the time and the energy to come up with something that, hey, this is what I'm passionate about. Because if you're passionate about it, other people will see it and they'll gravitate towards it and they'll help you do it. And I can see that, Matt, it exudes from you just wanting to create something. I think that's extremely important. And I think there's so many veterans that will hopefully listen to this and say, even if they don't want to go create something in film or any of that other stuff, it's like, hey, go create something that you love and that you're passionate about, and you'll reduce the amount of stress on your body. So I love it.
Yeah. I'm staying in Tampa right now. And so I think I'm going to be here for a couple of weeks or maybe a couple of months. And then I might have an opportunity to go to Naples in a couple of weeks to work on something. But I'm right by, if anybody knows the area, like Bayshore Boulevard, Bayshore Drive. It's one of the longest sidewalks, I think, in the United States. And so every day, just to kind of clear my head, whether it's in the morning or night, I just take a walk, and it's an hour and a half, 2 hours at the most, and just kind of there's the key. This is the key. I can't stress this enough. Turn your freaking phones off, man. Put that thing on vibrate or silent, and just don't think about anything and just take a walk. Just go for it. You'll be amazed the clarity that you get out of that.
Amen.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for being on the show. Last parting word, Doc, and then we'll hit Matt, and then we'll pull the plug.
As I was listening to you chat, Jeremy, I mean, for those of you that have never read it, read Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. I won't give you the spoiler away, but Matt essentially gave you Napoleon Hill's secret. So it's not rocket science to figure it out. And it's an easy read. If I recommend books, man, you can bet they've got white space and big font, right? Because I got to be able to read them fast. But yeah, Matt, dude, thanks so much for chatting with us. Thanks so much for the conversations we've had that turned on light bulbs in my head, visions. So hey, Jeremy, we're going to have Matt on the podcast, like whatever. So you made me a little bit more creative, Matt.
If that's the least I could do, that's not too shabby. And yeah, for even if you don't think you have, and I want to stress this really hardcore is you have to believe in yourself. And I can back this up with a story. It ties in with not only me, but another guy. He wasn't a military veteran, but when I was making the Nike spot, there was a guy who reached out to me, and this young kid, he's like 24, 20, 25 or something at the time. He goes, hey, I really love Tobias, but if you watch that video, it's a young Asian woman and an elder Asian guy who plays her father in the video. I was like, I don't have a spot for you. But this guy was very much into fitness, and he was like, I want to do something. Like, I know that I can do this. And I said, okay, well, I'll be done in like 3 weeks. Let's sit down and have a conversation. So we met in Santa Monica. His name is Tyler Prince, and I can give you guys his link later. But he's like, I want to be a fitness model. That's my thing. And this guy believed in himself hardcore. And that really kind of struck a chord with me because I believed in myself too. And I said, okay, I can do something for you for very cheap, and we're going to make it look amazing, but you're going to have to invest a little bit in it. And so this is kind of where there's the defining line of whether you're really going to do something or not. Because I quoted him a number, and I said, this is what it's going to cost to get this done. But if you trust me, I will make this shine. And so we got together, sat down, and in about a month, we made him 2 commercials. And if you go on to anointedforsuccess.com, you can see what those commercials are, because we made him 2 Under Armour specs. This guy is now repped nationally. He just shot a video with Shakira. He got to go over to Scotland. There's a company that's launching their own. They were doing women's fitness apparel. Now they're doing men's brand. So we've got a history, me and him now, that goes back, 6 or 7 years, all because he didn't give up and he was like, I know I've got this in me. And I said, I believe you, Matt. And so we made it happen. And he was on an ESPN commercial, I think, like 6 or 7 months ago for the football thing, like big old, like ripped, good looking guy. And was like, but he took the steps. He believed in himself. He got out there. I didn't have anything for him at the time, but I was like, I will make something for you because I believe in you too. And now he's off to the moon. So yeah, so personal success story. There you go.
So you can make Jeremy and I beard models. Amazing.
Hey, I was thinking about that actually while we're having the conversation. I'm thinking about a bike for the two of you. Get some good beard oil going on. Like, in the mountains of Colorado, what beard oil do you need to really make yourself shine? We'll start a whole military beard oil brand logo thing like that. That'd be hilarious. Yeah.
It'd be sweet. Yeah, it's funny.
But we have those people in our network. We have CrossFit trainers in our network. We have, guys that are running beard companies. I mean, I've met him at the Military Influencer Conference. Like, we've got guys that, teach people how to hand roll cigars at retirement ceremonies and stuff. So, I mean, if you're out there listening and you're not the creative, but you're struggling to market yourself or tell your story, whatever, I don't know. I tell you, after about 40 minutes with Matt, man, he's definitely demonstrated he's the guy with the chopstick can help you. So
I will take you down.
Reach out.
I will take you down the wonderful black hole of creativity that will.
That's
right. And this is the thing too. It's just on a closing note here. You guys have been very generous with your time, so I want to thank you. But it's back to what I said just a story a second ago. Is like, if you've got the idea, that's 90% of the work, right? If you've got the gumption to see it forward. And so that's the thing, is you might only be making like, the wooden flag blocks, creativity stuff, but you have like, I think this is successful. I think this can go. It might be somebody like me who brings you along and says, yes, I see this, but here's where I could actually, this is going. Like, it's much bigger kind of creative than you thought. And that's the great thing about the military veteran community is, after we're out, or wherever we are, you're not so much hampered by what you have to do in that 12-hour, 14-hour space of your job. It's kind of like, let's sit down, let's think about this. Let's see how far the creative rabbit trail goes and takes us, and then we can hone it from there. But if you've got the concept and you've got the idea, what are you really waiting for? Like, what's the one thing that you will never get more of, no matter how rich or poor you are?
Time.
That's it.
Wow. Yeah.
Hashtag time to adventure.
I like it. Well, thanks so much for your time, Matt. We really appreciate you being on. I think it's great to get to know you, and go check out anointedforsuccess.com.
Thank you so much, guys. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Thank you for tuning in and spending a bit of time with us at the Military Transition Academy, powered by Vets to PM. If we piqued your interest, but you want more details, please head over to the website vetstopm.com and see if we can help prepare you for a better tomorrow or a future meaningful and lucrative career.